Well, of course, talking about this innovation and, of course, the need to have local content skills acquisition, of course, is important, human capacity development. Where does the education sector come in here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're just hitting the nail on the head. The misnomer on ICT in this country is that we believe that ICT exists in the industry. It's a fallacy. ICT does not exist in the industry. The knowledge that grows the ICT industry exists in education. All what we find of in Facebook and Twitter and whatever, they're coming out of Stanford, out of MIT, out of UCLA and Silicon Valley. That is where they come out from. Professors and students, you know, researching, developing, creating, and when those prototypes are ready, they ship them to the industry. Then industry creates chairs in the universities for them to come up with these innovative ideas. So that is the way it works. But today, what we are seeing is that the industry knows much better than the education knows in ICT. It's wrong. We must reconnect ICT back to education and to be able to ensure that we can create the cluster within education. That is why, as the past president of ISPON, I established 30 software clubs in 30 universities and polytechnics in this country. And come to TINAPA, Knowledge City, to be competing among themselves. And it improved tremendously. Okay, so those are things we need to do. The solution resides in education for ICT in this country. And when we say in education, our lecturers must be given a more prominent role to be able to acquire more knowledge and more skill to teach our children.
Well, that's some of these lecturers don't even understand what you're talking about. Even the children know it more than they do.
That's the conflict in the class. So what we have advised the lecturers to do, don't shy away from what you don't know. Sit back one day in a month and let the best kid in ICT, in computer science in your class, teach the class. You will gain. And it becomes a win-win situation. But what we are saying is that really, NIDA has now recognized this flaw and is creating a forum for ICT lecturers in the university. At the last E-Nigerian forum, NIDA was able to bring almost about 100 lecturers, you know, to Abuja to be able to address them and hear them out and see what their problem is. And this issue is now being readdressed. But apart from that, we must create another layer of incentive where the best kids that has first class in computer science is made to remain in the campus to teach the rest and earn his PhD. You know, that is the way it goes.
If that child wants to actually do that.
If he wants, will be depending on the incentive. I guess, I tell you what, if you have a first class today in ICT, and you'll be willing to be a lecturer, you have a flat, you have a car waiting for you. That's incentive. And then the pay packet. So, I mean, you will choose if you want to write application and wait for 2 years or take this incentive. When you sign on this board, other people will follow. It's happened before. And of course, a lot of things are being done where you give scholarships and people just take the money and run and do their education and fall away. They need to return back to country to be able to, to put in back into what they have learned. You know, they have to be bonded anyway.
I was talking about PPP, public-private partnership. Right. How can we make this work in this sector? Particularly, talking about adoption, maybe advocating for adoption in strategies like financing and commercialization when you talk about indigenous products.
Exactly. I think that's the way to go, really, because when you look at it, the missing blocks are that you've not really created what we call the knowledge bank. They call it technology bank. A full-fledged bank, you have Bank of Industries, good, but industries is clustered. You need to put your engine where it was before you put the housing. What drives economy is about innovation. So you need a technology bank where private and public financing can meet. And that's what probably Fidelity Bank is trying to do with SMEs, to be able to create a special focus on SMEs. That has not existed before. And all those products that are needed, the SMEs will be taxed. You know, if you produce this, this is the incentive that you get. You get this loan and we can finance you, and of course it becomes a win-win situation. Now, when you come to public and private, you need to also exchange a lot of information as regards the ecosystem of what is happening. Everybody benefits. The most critical aspect that we are facing now is about the internet. The internet is the enabler for both SME and big players in the industry. So when they come together as PPP, they benefit. As we speak, the IPv4, that's the Internet Protocol version 4, is exhausted. To just give a layman's perspective, it's about the addressing system that you use to get to the internet or your phone devices on the network. This addressing system to the world was created years back, and it clusters to 340 billion addresses. These 340 billion addresses have been exhausted. The last block has been allocated. Now, guess what? Because of this crisis, Nigerian companies are going to face predominant challenges on how to migrate from IPv4 to IPv6, because IPv6 has now come on board. Now, if you look at what happened in 1999 about the Y2K, on parity board of 4 to 6 on pictures on COBOL that are now being readdressed, and of course, new architecture has come in. The IPv6 creates an enablement of the power of 340 to 2.8. And that gives you what they call 340 trillion, which they call now is a new word, sextillion. That is what the IPv6 allows. So the Nigerian economy and private and government must come together on a table to be able to say, how do we engage? If you look at the chart on IPv6 today, Nigerians are not playing. The only company that is playing on IPv6, though a lot of people have acquired, only company that is implementing is Internet Solutions. The MTNs of today, the Glos of today, they're all just still sitting on the block. So something must move. Something must happen before we get hot. The IPv6 is the way to go. The internet is become the center of gravity of human endeavor, and economy, livelihood, education. So you cannot neglect this platform. So that is why stakeholders are also looking at it to make sure that we get together to do something as a council of IPv6 in Nigeria to move things forward.
All right. Now let's look at this sector's contribution to the GDP. Well, as at from the figures from National Bureau of Statistics, as at the third quarter of this year, that sector contributed 9.58% GDP. And when you compare that to what is obtainable perhaps in other African countries, are we there yet? Because a lot of people will say, well, Nigeria, yeah, we're doing okay in ICT. Looking at what we have, with the figures we have, are we there?
Good question. I mean, I think the perspective to go is that we're doing okay, but could we have fared better? Definitely, we could have fared better. Because if you look at the population cluster that we have, and within that GDP growth, I tell you what, the 9.8 figure that we are seeing is more or less a benefit to the external world, because it's more or less a telecoms input of what we are consuming, though that has endangered development. But I don't see growth. Growth can come from innovation. You see, the issue about telecoms is that you need to be paying almost every time for what you acquire, developed by other people. You externalize employment, you create a capital flight, and the Director General of NOTAP is even now saying he's under pressure. He's been on public. He's under pressure of remittance requirements to transfer money on telecoms, dollars, billions of dollars. We are saying that software is almost about $1 billion that's transferred almost and every year out of Nigeria. So what we are saying is that there has to be a roadmap where we can put together and say, okay, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and this is how it's going to be championed. And that can only be the creative class that can champion. It's not the consumer class. We want to make sure that the softwares that are done in this country should be up to the standards of international measure. To do that, we need to bring everybody to the table. Incentives need to be there. Government need to come up clear with a roadmap on software. We need to have a specific institutionalized policy on software, not the ICT policy. The extract of national software policy will bring in investors and domesticate software in this country, so that that issue of nightmare of foreign or local should be diminished. We should play, we have a role to play, and it is of a right that the Nigerian software ecosystem is established in this country, and the Nigerians, of course, using the Local Content Act to be able to ensure that we can create employment, massive employment. I tell you, with the statistics of 17.6 million unemployed that we have from the Bureau also, if you create small-scale industries on softwares, okay, and you say, okay, this is the incentive, they are bound to employ at least one marketer or one sales guy that will go in. That will give you almost about 17 million jobs at a whoop. Then, of course, Local Content Act, the people will start to patronize what you are producing. So it is within those systems. It's against foreign software. That should not be. But what we are saying is that we need a software policy that does not encourage remittances of money. Come and sell your software here and redevelop that, reinvest that money in Nigeria. So let's see how the competition is going to go. The incentive that they have in there, because I've been a consultant to Notar, and I see that there are people who are requesting for remittances of software on security that does not exist at that time.
All right. Now, just recently, the National Information Technology Development Agency launched a national framework for building ICT partner ecosystem for an all-inclusive development of the sector. Right. What's your take on that?
Oh, I think the board has done well, and of course the new DG, Engineer Olu Jack, has gotten a focus where the PPP and stakeholders inclusion should be at stake to be able to drive. And he confessed this is a monumental assignment. It's a big job, so it's not a job of the DG alone or the management alone or directors alone. It is a job of Nigerians to come in and create what we call the Nigerian identity in the global community. And we have the capability. In fact, the only thing we have in this generation is the knowledge that our fathers have bestowed on us. And we have that potential to compete with the rest of them. We've just heard that in Peria and in America, the Nigerians come tops in the class. So what's wrong with us? Let us use our brain. That is the fuel, that is the raw material, that is the blood that the current is looking for, economic development. That is the core ecosystem. There's no other thing. All these things we are looking at oil or gas or whatever, all these offshores, they are developed by human beings. That is the prime, using raw materials to be able to assist the development of their country. And we have human beings in abundance.
All right. Now, looking at the trend of ICT development and, of course, usage here in Nigeria, where do you foresee Nigerian economy in the next, perhaps, 2 to 3 years? And considering this issue of
I think I will advocate that the oil price will fall to $20. If it does, then automatically we look at, do we have a plan B? Because we are not looking at if we have a plan B now. But if it does, we will know the enormity of the challenges that we face for the population of this country. Those who are in want, kids who are not in school, more than 10 million kids who are not in school, obsolete infrastructure, in education. Then, of course, we will roll up our sleeves and come in. And I guess what? It will be the fuel of competing with the rest of the world. India has to shut down the country from importing anything. And today we know where India is. So you cannot eat your cake and have it. If you want to be a Awolowo, as they say, you will be born, you will go to school, you'll be a doctor, whatever, you'll be a lawyer, you'll go to jail. But no mother wants his child to go to jail, but he wants them to be a Awolowo. So if you want to play the trend of winners, of innovators, you will need to follow that path and do the sweat and walk the talk.
Thank you very much.
As Tommy has said here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Chris Uwaje. It's been an interesting conversation there with all those technical jargons you've been reading out.
Layman's term, yeah.
Sure. Well, I've been speaking with Dr. Chris Uwaje. He is the former President, Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria. Well, he has hit the nail on the head, create incentive for innovation, and of course he has advocated for cluster building. That way we can have an ICT ecosystem and then be able to move forward. Well, it's on that note that we draw the curtain on today's edition of the program. Thank you very much for being part of it. Tomorrow is yet another day on the program. Hope to see you again.